Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm making a quick update here, talking about the um, Saturn Mars conjunction that we have in the sky, and also the Mercury debilitated that we have in Pisces that just started. So you see, we have quite a few planets here in Capricorn: Saturn, Venus, Mars here in Capricorn, and Mercury just entered Pisces, where he's going to be until early April. It's not going to, he's not going to be hanging out there too long, a little more than a couple weeks, but still, when Mercury's debilitated, it's a specific kind of energy. So I'm going to be going into those things quite a bit. As you can see, there's also the scrolling along the bottom, the free web class, nodes in Aries and Libra. You can register for that. It's a free web class where you can see how the shift of the nodal axis, as you can see even on this graphic here, Rahu is in Aries, Ketu is in Libra now, and they're going to be there for the next 18 months. So that's a significant shift. If you haven't gotten this free web class yet, you can go there. You see the link there. It's actually a very easy link to remember, nodalshift2022.com, nodalshift2022.com. And when you go there, you'll see the opportunity to just click register now, and then you can get Rahu and Aries, Ketu and Libra for your sign. You're going to find out, because, for example, if you're Virgo, that's Rahu in the 8th house, Ketu in the 2nd house. If you're, Cancer, it's Rahu in the 10th house and Ketu in the 4th house. These are totally different based on whatever your rising sign is. So again, that's really important to know, because this will be a major shift and a major point of emphasis, regardless of your dashas or anything else, for the next year and a half. And so again, I also do a very in-depth case study of the last time that Rahu and Ketu were in this axis. And in fact, it even includes things that have to do with the Ukraine war now. The last time Rahu and Ketu went through here, we had the largest expansion of NATO, the largest expansion of the EU, and we even had a revolution in Ukraine called the Orange Revolution, which led to a lot of fallout and poisoning and all kinds of crazy stuff. So I talk about that on this free web class. And again, there's also a link in the description under the video. So last thing, I forget to do this, so I make sure to do it at the beginning of the video now, but please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy this update and you want to get more things like this. You can just, again, click subscribe, leave a comment, leave a positive comment if you like this video, and also like and share on other social media platforms like Facebook or Twitter if you're seeing it other places or wherever you're seeing it. So without further ado, let's look at this chart and just talk about this is the chart of March 24th, rather, 2022, at about 11 p.m. I just pulled the chart up from that time and then, made a quick screenshot. But you can see here that Mars and Saturn are very close. They're getting closer to exact conjunction, which will also happen in early it'll actually happen in early April. They'll be exact around like April 3rd, April 4th, April 5th. But right now they're still very close. So between now and early April, the exact conjunction happens like April 5th, April 4th, April 5th. Again, some real dangerous times ahead, of course, as we know, this terrible war in Ukraine is just devastating. It's a real gut punch to see this total unnecessary, really just dictator action taking place. There's hardly any support probably within Russia. The Russian people are believing some of the propaganda, but even probably within the military and the oligarchs and everyone realizes this is a terrible quagmire that's hurting the Russian economy. Companies pulling out, even in the world of sports. I happen to follow tennis. A lot of terrible punitive measures and horrible, things coming upon these, Russian tennis players who didn't do anything wrong. And it's really to serve one man's vanity, honestly. And if you have a problem with that, then you can leave your comments and tell me why. but this is really a dictator who has overstepped and miscalculated. And for someone who we all thought was so shrewd, he's really proven to be a real dummy. Frankly, he thought he would roll into Ukraine and they would welcome the Russians as liberators because they have to speak Russian and whatnot. But again, he should have realized that they don't want to live under the rule of a dictator. They want a democracy. However corrupt the democracy might be, and I've been reading the comments. I listen when people post comments, and yeah, there's always been corruption in Ukraine. There's corruption in every government, but they still prefer self-determination and a government that's not a dictatorship and whatnot. And so the eastern provinces, notwithstanding, and any kind of strong arm, heavy-handed police actions that had been taking place there, Putin's response has been clearly not measured. And again, and as we move into the next phase of what this might be, at least there's hyper threats of nuclear actions, chemical weapon actions, and I think we must be on the lookout for false flag operations, especially now. You see this rhetoric around how in Ukraine there's all these chemical weapons plants. Again, this has been totally debunked. They have biological research facilities, but they have those all over the world. Yes, they have some in Ukraine as well, but those biological research facilities aren't weapons manufacturer plants. By the way, Putin said the same thing in Syria as a prelude to launching a chemical weapons attack in Syria. Before he did it, he said, oh, they're using chemical weapons. So then he used them. So this is a dangerous kind of rhetoric. And we've even seen where Biden has come out now and warned that these are real possibilities, not to mention cyber attacks and even obviously threats of using nuclear weapons. We have to give him credit for whatever people might think about Biden. And, I'm no big fan, but he's proven to be right about what he said. And it was good that he came out and warned the world in advance. It's a very unconventional and unorthodox way of handling it at first. And people were very much saying, why do you keep saying that Russia's going to attack? Even Zelensky was saying, will you be quiet? We're trying to be peaceful here. But Biden came out and outed him in front of the world and said, I told you this was what was going to happen. And again, he certainly didn't create it, but letting the people know in advance, letting the world know in advance has proven to be quite a prescient way to handle it. But it's also scary because the things he's saying now, you have a tendency to believe him because the U.S. intelligence has been right about all of this. They said even right away that Putin looks like he's going to attack, and then before he even did anything, he said it looks like he's going to go after Kyiv, and people were like, God, why are you saying this stuff? Cut it out. And all of it was correct. So now they're saying that the intelligence looks like they might be really planning to use chemical weapons or other kinds of limited nukes or something like that. I mean, this is just hard to imagine. This is right on the brink of a possible escalation World War III scenario. And again, we see this danger here with this Saturn, Mars in Capricorn. Venus is also there. We need to pray, send your thoughts and prayers in advance that hopefully even to Vladimir Putin, that he to the situation, of course, to the Ukrainian people, but also that Putin gets some sense and realizes, he's already done so much damage that's going to take, God knows, decades to repair in the Ukraine. And I think the Ukrainian people have already been remarkably patient and losing their patience there because now that Russian fighters are in there fighting. And once war starts, now you're just fighting for your life. You're fighting for your life because now they're in Ukraine and Ukrainian soldiers are trying to kill them because they're in their country. So now the Russians have to fight back to try to not die. And this is the war game. At first, the Russian soldiers are confused. Why are we here? We don't really want to be here. But they push forward, and now they're in the country, and now the Ukrainians try to repel them back, and the Russian soldiers have to fight because it's you or me at this point. Even if I didn't want to be here, now I'm here, and I don't want to die. And so the Russian military has taken heavy losses. There's all kinds of reports of dissent in the generals and in the ranks of the military. We have defections, all kinds of stuff going on. So let's hope that something happens that gets Putin out of there, and however it happens, and so again, this danger is not a joke. This is real stuff. This Saturn, Mars in Capricorn, this is exalted Mars. Now, on a more mundane level, though, this is also, you may have noticed and felt this, I definitely have lately, it's really felt a renewed call to be disciplined in my spiritual practices, my sadhana, my spiritual practices, my focus, my concentrated efforts and energies. Those things are very supported by exalted Mars, because Mars is that planet and that planetary force that allows you to do what is difficult but is right, because we all know what's right, it's just hard to do it. And we tend to really slide on things that are right because they become comfortable. We'd rather be comfortable than right. We'd rather do what's comfortable than what's right, and that's Venus. Venus is the comfortable part, right? Venus is the comfortable part that's like, we could become very undisciplined, and we maybe have been very undisciplined lately with this Venus-Mars conjunction, where, again, Venus wants to be comforted, like, again, the way we can comfort ourselves with food, with sleeping a lot, with, again, just wanting to be, peaceful, not peaceful, but stimulated and happy and enjoying life. And Venus can be overly sensual, for example. That's a big thing with Venus, is this over sensuality. When Mars and Venus were exactly combust and exactly conjunct for like a month within 1 degree of each other, I said, one of the things I noticed was, like, I was so hungry and I actually wanted to eat, not really junk food, but like sort of junk food, like food that tastes good, like not just a food that's good for you, but, like some ice cream or some really tasty food. Like, even if you're not driven by that so much, like I'm not so much driven by that, but even I wanted to. It's like, I think for, I don't know how, like about a week in a row, there's, now they have really good, it's not even ice cream where it's like milk, where it has a lot of calories in it. Not like Ben and Jerry's, which is like 1,000 calories for a pint. But there's the kind that's like made of yogurt or other kinds of stuff. It's like maybe 400 calories for half a pint or something like that. Like every day for a week or so, I ate a pint of it, like this nice, health. It's really healthy ice cream. It's some of it's not ice cream really. It doesn't even have dairy in it, but there's so many good varieties of it. I was like, damn, I've eaten this before, and I got a taste of it, and I was like, God, this is really good. It's only 400 calories. What the heck? So for, it's easy to want to indulge a little bit. So but, and you see Venus is now joined Saturn and Mars, so a lot of that has died down. There's still some of it there, but again, Saturn and Mars are like, they really bring in that willingness to sacrifice for what we know is right, which is Mars. Mars is the thing that makes you want to work out and do that thing that's hard, but that makes you strong. It's hard, but it makes you strong, right? And Saturn and Mars wants to do it like right now, like this moment, I'm going to do the thing that's hard, but it makes me strong. And then Saturn is the thing that says, I'm not just going to do it now, or I'm not just going to do it today. I'm going to do it tomorrow and the next day. And that's what spiritual practice is. That's what sadhana is, where you don't just do it one day, you do it every day. That's what a meditation practice is. And that's why Mars is exalted in Capricorn, because we don't just do it one day. Mars is powerful in Aries. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this thing now. Do this thing now. Okay, we do it now, and then you're doing something else. Then you're doing something else. Okay. Capricorn is like, we're much more strategic rather than just doing this thing now and having the courage to do it. I'm going to set up a routine, and I'm going to do it every day for a long time and be disciplined and get strong and use my energy over and over again toward this goal, right? So, especially with Mars now joined Saturn in Capricorn, where Mars is exalted and Saturn is the ruler, very, very good time to align your understanding of what's right and how to align your energy with what's right with the bigger picture and the larger goal and where you're going in your life, so that it's not just a matter of being impulsive about, okay, I'm going to do this thing now and I'm going to work out, I'm going to do this and it'll be fun and exciting, because Mars is just kind of that excitement in the moment as well, right? That joy of even like physical activity and sweating and the whatnot. Some people have a powerful Mars, or who have a strong Mars. They like that part. Like I like that part. I have it in Leo, like it's third house, so it's like sports and like to compete and really even like feeling like it's hot out and it's like tiring and it's like, oh, this is hard, sweating. It's like I love it, especially if it's a game. I hate it if I'm like lifting weights or something that's boring. To me, it's boring. Something like that is boring. If it's something like a competition, like me against someone, and it can be competitive, and someone's going to win, someone's going to lose. Even if I lose, I like it because I don't like losing. Let me be clear, but I like the competition because I'm really competing against myself. If I play really well, that's what I'm trying to do, and feeling that, but that physicality about it, it's like great. So that's a powerful Mars, just in a sort of physical state, in a sort of, but the but a when it's aligned with a larger goal, with a larger goal, then it becomes more about, again, like about a spiritual practice and a sadhana and something that you do over and over again to get really strong. I just realized I had the mic over here, so if the mic was a little low, it's right in front of me now, so it'll be better. So you see that in your life. Now, again, Venus has also joined Saturn and Mars, so again, your relationships and your desire to want to interact and to connect and compromise and all might be a little hindered at the moment. Maybe not, but it might be. But it can also be kind of passionate and whatnot if there's a good vibe there, because Mars Venus can be kind of sexual in nature, and Saturn is powerful here, Capricorn. So there could be a lot of deep Venus energy as well if you have that kind of relationship where that where the vibe is strong. It's not necessarily difficult in that regard, but if you're not in one, or if the energy is a little contentious already, it could amplify that contentious part of a relationship as well. Well, I want to spend some time here with his Mercury also in Pisces, because when Mercury is that discrimination. It's that story in your head. We all have a story about what's going on. What am I doing? Where am I going? What does it mean? More about the what does it mean part, because the what am I doing? It's kind of like the story. What am I doing? Where am I going? What does all this mean? It's very much Mercury. And when he's in Pisces, we kind of get the story maybe a little confused. It gets a little confusing to us. We maybe have a hard time sort of remembering, like, oh yeah, that's what this is all about. That's who I am. That's the story. Okay. I'm doing this. This is why, and that's what it is. And oh yeah. So of course that can also make it a good time to reevaluate the story and think about what we're doing. But we also might just get a little confused about it and misinterpret things. One second. You won't believe what I'm drinking. Look at that. Blood. No, it's juice with beets in it. That beet juice is good. Anyway, not too bad. But so this Mercury is when it's in Pisces, we kind of get the story. It's like gets a little bit underwater. You know, I use the example like Mercury is like the accountant, right? The accountant is really, you know, does a good job in Virgo, for example, where every piece of, you know, every number is accounted for. Every piece of data is accounted for. Everything is organized and precise and not distorted, not exaggerated. And if you have an accountant, you know, you want the accountant to base the numbers on the actual numbers, right? Not the projections. Like, well, it's like, how much money do I have? Well, you have this much. This is how much you actually have. So you should base your budget on how much money you actually have, not based on how much you might have if something happens. That's bad accounting. Good accounting is you have this much and here's, you know, it's all planned out. So when Mercury's in Pisces, it's like all the numbers kind of are more like colors. The numbers become colors, and the budget becomes like a painting that you're going to paint. Or, you know, maybe it's a fairy tale, or maybe it's a dark fantasy or something. Instead of the numbers and the practical steps and how to organize it, it becomes all the details get blurred together. Now, you know, this can be a very creative placement. It can be even a placement where there's a lot of discrimination possible. You know, the famous example is Einstein had Mercury in Pisces, but he had other planets there really supporting it. And there's other things that come into play. But for the most part, you'll see the kind of detriment a little bit. And it can kind of run the gamut. Sometimes people can have a real facility with certain types of details, certain type of language, but you'll notice it in how people speak. And sometimes, I've observed a few people, sometimes, they're very good with kind of synthesizing ideas, but when they try to speak about them, like, again, it can be quite creative, like Einstein. And his theory of relativity was more of a creative, revelation that revealed itself to him. And then he had the mathematical common sense chops to then go back and make a formula out of it to capture the realization that he had. So the theory of relativity was a realization that he had. Time and space are relative to each other, and you take, the energy, equals mass times the speed of light squared, like the energy of an atom equals mass times the speed of light squared, captured this gigantic theory that was just a revelation or realization that he had before he had any way to prove it or make any benefit out of it. So there can be a lot of creative thinking. Again, this is a transit between now and like April 8th. It's a real good time for creative thinking, creative writing, not so much editing. Editing is good in Virgo, right? But the creative writing process, or music writing, or other kinds of things like that. A few things that I've observed before when people have Mercury and Pisces, sometimes the thoughts just keep coming, and they never stop. Like, it's not organized. They might all be correct, but one thought leads to another thought, just keeps leading to another thought, and it's like a river that just keeps flowing and flowing. And so at some point, you have to kind of interrupt them a little bit and go, okay. Like, again, Mercury is good for having a good sense of that, especially with communication. Because when you're communicating, again, communication isn't just one person talking, it's both people talking. So again, one thing and it's listening as well. So I've seen sometimes when Pisces, when Mercury's in Pisces, the person will just talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And it's not because they're being rude. They don't realize, like, one sentence finishes and another one's already began. One thought just keeps leading into the next one, into the next one. And it's like, so blah, 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 because that's just like this, and then it's like this, and then this, and then it goes to this, and then it's that, and it's literally like the thoughts are just this stream of thoughts, and they don't get buttoned down, and you got to kind of like dam up the river for a second to like, okay. And so again, but this also can be the thing that can lead to confused thinking, like because it's not so organized. So you started somewhere and then you wound up somewhere else, and you're like, okay, well, why am I here now? Like, what is this now? What part of is this? Why am I on this part of it now? So again, with Mercury being that story in our head about many things, and again, it's not just that we have a story, we have stories. We're nothing but a bunch of stories. You have a story about the work you're doing, about your relationships, about your health, about your identity, about your family, about your money. You have stories about everything. It's all stories. And Mercury is those stories that you're telling yourself. And when you think about something, it's really Mercury that considers it and has a kind of sensible or not sensible explanation. Like, okay, this is why I'm doing this thing and not that thing, and this is why my childhood was this way, and this is why my relationship with my kids are this. Again, so the situations are what they are in your life. They're all different. We have different kinds of benefits and strengths in our life, but the stories we're telling ourselves about them, the way we're interpreting those things, that's Mercury. So how important is that? What you're telling yourself about it. One of the reasons I've been successful as an astrologer is because it's kind of what I do for people is I give them the real story. They have a story like, oh yeah, I'm thinking this, blah blah, and then I look at a chart and then I start telling them a story about their life. Right? That's what astrologers do. We then say, this is here, and so here's the story, and it's like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, I get it. So when you're communicating in a way like as an astrologer, what you're really doing is you're retelling the story. They have a story about what's going on, and you're like, here's what's going on, and you're really giving them another story. And when we're communicating with people, we're kind of doing that. We're sort of bringing our story to their story. Like, what's your story? When you hang out with friends, it's that same kind of thing, right? We all have a story about what's going on. I mean, look at the nature of the world now. We all have stories about, I told stories at the beginning about Ukraine and the war and Putin and this and that and what Biden said and all to you. That's just a story. That's the way I tell the story. That's the way I understand the story. Other people are like, that's not the story. And then they're going to tell their story. And they're going to tell me that my story is about BS and I'm a lot of BS. And what's your story? So it's very important, and how much we're really believing that. Believing what our last relationship was, or our childhood was, or our relationship with this other person, what happened here. So when Mercury's in Pisces, it's not so clear, and we're emotional about it, and we may create something. We might create some flowery version of it or some dark version of it, and it might lead us to create a piece of music or create something else, because Pisces is that transcendent quality of life that's not just of this earth, not just living here on earth with all the details and whatnot. So this is what I would say about these two important things that are happening right now. Again, of course, I'm sitting here in the comfort of my beautiful house, condo here in San Diego, a mile from the beach. Beautiful weather, comfortable, happy, and halfway around the world, there's devastation. And by the way, not just in Ukraine. There's devastation in Yemen. There's devastation in other areas of the world where Syria, Afghanistan after years of war, all over the different places in the world. And I really hope that we all just get a newfound sensitivity to each other. And on some level, what's happening now feels like a great opportunity, because, this kind of thing could have happened without much outrage years ago. And what I've noticed, and what feels like a positive in this horrible situation, is the global outrage at this kind of action, and the total rejection, with the exception of a few minorities who believe the propaganda of this action. The propaganda being that, well, if they wouldn't have gotten so close, well, if NATO hadn't done this, well, what about the US? Well, what about that? Again, because these organizations are also definitely not perfect and have made their mistakes, and are, that's not even close to a justification for what's happened. And this propaganda, it just hasn't worked. And even things like the sanctions and whatnot is showing to be, it's revealing how much, perhaps, this is going to trigger some people, but I'm going to say it anyway, but some version of a new world order. And I'm not even talking about where America is the leader or anything like this, but I'm talking about just where things like all of these sanctions and businesses pulling out of countries for a while, and the crippling financial ramifications of invading other countries and killing their citizens and whatnot, could have a profound impact. Like, for example, we see that, China is watching to see, like, well, how's the world responding to this? Maybe we'll move on Taiwan next. Maybe we'll invade Taiwan. Doesn't look like America's doing anything. Doesn't look like, look at the response from NATO in here, to Russian aggression, and China thinking, well, maybe we'll see what happens if we take Crimea. But look at what has happened. The sanctions, especially the sanctions have been crippling the Russian economy. Again, we have Putin, who's a dictator who seems to be out of his mind at this point, doesn't seem to care. But the Chinese are different. Chinese might care. They're sitting there also. They're watching that response, even though it's not bombs flying. It's very interesting to see what kind of leverage, financial, again, sanctions and freezing of assets and all this stuff can have. Because in many ways, the war now is being fought financially. Again, if Putin had any sense, he would stop the bombs, and he would have stopped them weeks ago when these sanctions came. And it was the threat of these crippling sanctions that many thought would stop him from doing something so ill-conceived and and poorly executed, because this was always possible, and he doesn't have any cards in the deck except things like biological weapons or nukes. That's why it's so scary, because the common sense that would have stopped him were and are the sanctions that have crippled his economy. Now, again, China is a bigger country. Again, they have much more people, countries might be much less willing to impose such sanctions because it would hurt their own country as well. Again, I don't want to get too geopolitical here, but all I'm saying is that another way to look at this is how quickly the world came together in opposition to this, and how effective sanctions were, how much, again, you must be thinking it could be a test run for China also, again, looking to see what might happen. And again, it's like, okay, well, if we take Taiwan, which again would be just as egregious of an act as Russia moving into Ukraine, again, it would also be fought, it would be difficult, it would be entrenched, the Taiwanese will fight to defend their homeland. It'll be the same kind of quagmire, Same kind of thing. And they're going to see, okay, there's going to be swift mobilization of sanctions as well. Do we want to do this? They've seen now. They've seen, okay, this is the result. I don't know. Again, China is very different. And by the way, everyone thought Putin was different, that he was much more calculated, like I said at the beginning. And he's proven to be out of his gourd a little bit. This is why people are scared. It's why it's so scary. Chinese, it's hard to think that they're not looking at this going, this has not worked out very well. So I'm not saying it's good. I don't want to anyone to misunderstand. It's a terrible thing. But a silver lining could be that something could happen. And by the way, that's possible here with this Mars, this Saturn Mars, that this thing could blow up and end where with a coup or an assassination or some other kind of thing, or a sudden change and ending rather than a dramatic escalation of warfare. Perhaps a sudden dramatic end could happen. And but at which point it could be going forward a new standard of global, like I said, when I said New World Order, that's got all kinds of connotations now of hard power, New World Order, where you enforce, hegemony or a sort of hegemonic, Western view, worldview on the rest of the world. But I'm in a new world order that has more to do with being with punitive financial measures against, dictatorial regimes, which include punishing the U.S. or any, for things that are like happening in Yemen or whatever other countries got together. These are just a few sort of musings at the end of the video. But I do see that there's a potential for good to come out of this, for sure. It's a hard one. It would be not worth it. It would be not worth it in the short term because of all the death and the destruction of Ukraine, Mariupol, and it's just terrible. So let's pray that this doesn't go on much longer and that those antagonists get what they deserve and are unable to perpetrate these crimes any longer than they should be able to, which is already past their due. By the way, we have in mid-April, within a month, we're going to have Jupiter in Pisces, which will also be an improvement of the situation. This is by April 15th, April 14th, April 15th, Jupiter will move into Pisces. So we're a few weeks away from better times astrologically. And by the way, this also includes the sun going into Aries, of an exalted sun, get near eclipse time or whatnot. But I have a feeling, and I'm keeping out, there's definitely the possibility that scenarios that I'm talking about can also happen. Saturn, Mars can also be the destruction of the one doing the destruction. Right? The destruction of the destroyer and the one doing the destruction. Exalted sun can be the rise to power and prominence of a new leader, maybe even someone like Navalny or someone like that in Russia. Again, know how much oligarchs would like that, but you might see a revolt in Russia. I mean, this is the best possibility, is that Russian soldiers who are taking heavy casualties, to Russian mothers and citizens start getting tired of this. And let's say Putin ceases hostilities, and then maybe there's an uprising after that, or some version of that is definitely not out of the realm of possibility, especially once the sun goes through Aries we start getting these eclipses and stuff like that. I'll do some updates, but Jupiter going into Pisces, again, more inspiration coming down the pike. So keep that in mind. Keep your heart light. Do your best, and support the people of Ukraine and in other places, Yemen, other war-torn places around the world. It's time for us to just really be more sensitive about all of this, and hopefully this can be a time when that's part of what we're all doing now. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful for you to hear. And again, like I said, please like and share and subscribe to the channel if you like getting this kind of content. Share it with others, like I said, especially you can also share it on Facebook and Twitter and other places. And I hope you have a great day.